Is there anything in this world that would want to make me give away what I'm doing now? Yes, there is. When my children can take the football that I call wildlife conservation and run it up. When they're ready to run up our mission, I will gladly step aside. And I guarantee you it'll be the proudest moment of my life. And my job will be done. Then and only then will I know that I have achieved my ultimate goal. To be able to stand aside and let them run up my mission.
It's an absolute honour to be a part of it, and I'll tell you what, we love our crocodiles so much. It's all to make sure we can better protect them. Alright, sweetheart, you ready to go? Okay, here we go. You ready?
Ready.
Go.
This is HBR News number 432, Erasing International Men's Day. Kim Kardashian is Man of the Year, where we discuss the news of the week and give it the Badger treatment. Hello everybody and welcome to Honey Badger Radio. I hope you guys are doing well this week and that you're laughing at all of this absurdity so that you're not consumed by it. I'm your host, Brian, and I'm joined by my lovely co-hosts, Hannah Wallen and Dr. Randomcam. Mike J is unavailable this week. So we have, it's a kind of a slow news week, I guess, but we do have some things that I want to cover. So I've been sort of treating this a little bit different. You'll see, we're going to be talking about International Men's Day. And not more than that, really it's going to be about the sort of discussion around International Men's Day. We're also going to be talking about the, there was some revelations that I was already aware of regarding January 6th, as well as some news about the absolute state of feminist cinema. So stick around, it's going to be a good time, and be sure to join us afterwards for the patron-only show. So you guys may have heard through the whales of the internet that Argentina elected a libertarian president, Javier Milei, or Milei, I don't know how to say his name. I apologize for not understanding. And it has thrown feminists into an absolute tizzy. So there is an article here from The Telegraph entitled "New Argentina President Javier Milei wastes no time implementing radical policies." Basically, he's going to eliminate a bunch of government, institutions. And of course, you know, the feminists, the left, whatever, they're big mad about it. So we're going to dive into some of that in the patron show. If you want to join us on the Patreon show, you have to become a Badger yourself by going to feedthebadger.com and setting up a monthly subscription. $5 a month will get you into our Discord, where you'll be able to participate in all of the additional content. And we also have lots of stuff going on there. We have movie nights, we have game nights, there's book writing stuff. Allison is in the chat right now, like in a non-live or not show, but she's hanging out with the patrons right now in one of the other voice chats. I hope that you guys are not in there because you're supposed to be here watching the news show. But, you know, when the stars align correctly, it works out. And if you give it higher levels, you can be a part of the discussion yourself. So please consider becoming a member. And if you just want to see what it looks like, all of you are welcome to join for free with limited access by going to badgernation.online. That's badgernation.online to check out the free portion, which is also very active. So, and if you don't want to wake up one morning to find that we have been yeeted from the internet, then go to badgerfeed.com or honeybadgerradio.com, where all of our content lives. And shout out to the Rumble Gang. What's up, Rumble Gang? If you guys are not already following us on Rumble, why aren't you? It's hbradio@rumble.com. All right. So with all that out of the way, let us get into today's story. So normally I would have other people do the write-ups, but I ended up doing them. And because of that, I wanted to try something a little bit different with a couple of the stories. But the first one, which is about January 6th, is going to be relatively straightforward like the others. So it has been revealed to people who weren't paying attention for the past like month or so that the House Republicans, led by Speaker Mike Johnson, they are planning to release about 90 hours of security footage from January 6th of 2021 Capitol attack to the public. They're calling it the Capitol attack. The footage, posted on the House Administration Committee's website, will be available for public viewing in designated rooms within the Capitol complex starting on Monday. So that's yesterday. Eventually, around 95% of the 44,000 hours of tape will be made public, excluding segments that contain sensitive security information. The move has raised concerns amongst Democrats and left-leaning groups who argue it poses a security threat. Republicans assert a commitment to transparency, while Democrats question the safety of publicizing the footage, emphasizing potential risks to security and individuals' privacy. The release follows tensions over the handling of the footage by the Republican majority, with accusations of attempts to whitewash the events of January 6th. The move is part of ongoing investigations into the Capitol attack and has drawn both support and criticism along partisan lines. And
just the fact that they don't want anybody to see that footage is enough to tell you that the narrative that they promoted about it is wrong. Because if it was all true, they would want every second of that footage released.
Yes.
And as you said, it's all been released except that which might endanger some kind of security. But yeah, these people are saying that it shouldn't be released because it's endangering some kind of security protocol. No, that contingency has already been sliced away. We're not seeing the stuff that could jeopardize any kind of security. And we're not here saying, well, we need to see that footage as well. No, we're happy with the 40,000 hours. We don't need the extra 12 hours that happen to show a combination lock at a distant, blurry distance. We're fine with not seeing that. We just want to see the thousands of hours of footage that have been denied to us in the last 2 years or so. Please and thank you.
I was just going to say that if you want to watch the whole thing, I do have a link in the description. The Epoch Times, that's EPOCH. I don't know if it's pronounced Epic or Epoch. I used to say Epoch. I don't know if that's correct, but the Epic or Epoch Times, they had a guy that, got all the footage come on and basically went through like a lot of it, and he brought up the highlights specifically, and it was on, like, they had it on the Epoch Times website, like, I don't know, a month ago, and I watched it. And it gets a little bit rowdy, but by and large, I mean, it gets rowdy, but that's mostly outside, and that's only in certain areas. And then there's also discussion about, like, how many of the people who were sort of, instigating this stuff were actually just feds. So, it's I guess what I'm saying is that we knew about this already, but now it's sort of officially out there. And
yeah,
go ahead.
Did you finish the write-up? Sorry.
No, I finished reading it. Yeah, that's the end.
Okay. Yeah, I was gonna say what you just said. What's becoming even more solidified is that the stark difference between what was going on inside the Capitol building and what was going on outside in designated areas outside. It resembled a war zone, whereas inside it was a perambulating line of confused people being ushered through the guide ropes by the feds. And once again, you have to cast your mind back to January the 6th, to the day itself, to what we were watching in the minute-by-minute video footage being released into the media and filtered through its various algorithms. We'd see a video of the crowd outside going wild, and then we'd see a video of Baked Alaska and the shaman guy and some other rando chilling in some otherwise empty chamber like they owned the place. See, watching these two concurrent scenes, the A plot and the B plot, you're given the impression that they're connected in the same causal chain of events, that the same group of people have violently stormed the walls of the castle, and as a result, their leaders have already taken the throne right there in the throne room. It's a series of selected scenes. It's like editing a movie. In one plot, you've got the Battle of Helm's Deep or whatever, and in the other, you've got the three hobbits tiptoeing through some liminal space, and you're like, I see how it's all connected, but it wasn't connected. Is what we are now solidifying. Some of the crowd were escorted into the building by some highly nonchalant police officers. That part we didn't see. Meanwhile, some of the crowd was isolated in that exterior section, where the police applied the non-lethal chemical deterrents, which was what caused the panic that resulted in that rather tumultuous scene. That part we didn't see. It was all smoke and mirrors, folks. That's how cultural warfare works in the age of the camera. You divide your enemy into two flanks. One flank you capture and intimidate and attack, and then when they react as any frightened crowd would react, you film them doing this reaction without the preceding context. The other flank you invite and encourage and escort, and you film them infiltrating you without the preceding context. That all was supposed to be some kind of metaphor, but I ended up just describing the thing that happened, because there is no metaphor for this. It's novel. It's a convergence of vectors on a graph of possible evils that's never been able to happen until this age of ours. So don't be giving me any of that beer hall putsch bullshit. Like, this is something to do with the Nazis. This is a layered, high-concept psycho thriller that makes your quaint no German references look like child's play. Shall we contrast it with what happened over the Summer of Love? Wubba dabba, I hear you cry, and I bonk you on the nose. The only footage we have of BLM is riots and looting, wanton destruction, arson, and violent insurrection. Actual insurrection, where you actually annex an area and prevent the state police from entering that area. And the algorithm of mainstream media narratives cannot show you any of it. If they stand in front of a city in flames and call it a peaceful protest, and they genuinely expect to get away with it. Meanwhile, what's the B plot? What footage are they showing us of the good things that BLM has done? Yeah, there isn't any. They make college students chant, "We have nothing to lose but our chains," and then they burn down the neighborhood. And half a dozen Marxist grifters become multimillionaires. That's it. There is no contrast footage they can show us. They just coast on the notion that they stand for Black lives because that's what they call themselves. So the B story in this case has to be it's the likes of the McCluskeys, that well-to-do couple in whateversville who just wanted to grill, but found themselves drawing their firearms on a mob of BLM rioters. And sure enough, click, click, click. Look at these white supremacists, fascists, terrorizing these peaceful protesters. That was the best they can do. Has anyone seen any left-leaning documentaries about what went down during the Summer of Love? I doubt it. That's how impossible it is to spin all that footage into any kind of fluff piece. So it's just being memory holed, along with the whole lockdown debacle that coincidentally coincided it. But on January the 6th, they all had their wits about them. They knew what to do and when to do it. They had complete control of the police at all times. They had complete control of the crowd at all times. And they went lights, camera, action, and they proceeded to record the piece of fiction that they intended, every aspect of which they had already scripted. They even had everyone ready on the back end. in the producer room, in the social media sites and mass media channels, carefully editing the footage so we see what we're supposed to see. And the most disappointing thing of all is that it wasn't just the normies who fell for this farce. It wasn't just the people already long since ideologically captured by the edited machine that is the TV networks. That you could understand. You could understand it from people who watch nothing but CNN their whole lives and think it's true. But it was the people who should have known better. That's what really stings.
Mm-hmm.
The people who claim to be sensible centrists. The people who claim to reject authoritarianism. The people who insist that they don't trust the government while they fall hook, line, and sinker for every emerging node in the government's web of bullshit. And it's because they thought they heard it from somewhere else. They thought the TV was telling them the truth. They thought C-SPAN was telling them the truth. They thought Twitter was telling them the truth. They thought they weren't wearing the goggles that the government straps over every orifice in the digital realm. Well, you know what? The goggles do nothing. I mean, the goggles do. They clearly do something. But the moral of the story is the goggles should do nothing. But
unfortunately,
I tangented. Yeah. Sorry. Save me, Brian.
It's all right. So I just want to remind everybody that I almost went to January 6th because Lindsay always reminds me that I almost went. Whenever I learn more stuff about this, she's like, that could have been you, because I was like walking out the door that morning to drive up to Washington D.C., which is only 3 hours from here, and Lindsay said, "Please don't go. I have a bad feeling." So this is just so that you guys get an idea of how close the corruption is to us. So anyway, it's confirmed. Don't let them forget it. Share this around. Do you have any friends, out of curiosity, do you have any friends or anyone in your social circle that believes that the January 6th was an insurrection and it was like way worse than the Summer of Love and people almost died and there were fires and there was chaos and cats and dogs living together, and all of that? Let me know in the comments. And have you tried to tell them? Have you tried to make the case, hey, you were lied to? Because one thing, it's like they say, it's easier to fool someone and to convince somebody that they've been fooled. And a lot of people have been fooled by a lot of narratives. January 6th is only one, and it's actually kind of a small one. So I'd like to know what your thoughts are in the comments. But now we're going to get to the real story.
I want to point out one more thing.
Go ahead, Hannah. Yeah, it's okay. Go ahead.
And I'm gonna bring up Ray Epps. If you have seen any of my Twitter feed, I retweeted a documentary on this. That guy either was a Fed or a very disturbed man. He actually, prior to this event, was surveilling Baked Alaska, and can be seen multiple times in multiple locations trying to direct people to go into the Capitol and them yelling that he's a Fed. So this is when you hear about the different people that are categorized as Feds and all the hinky stuff that happened. Remember, there is a guy who basically stalked somebody that was likely to be there and tried to manipulate him. And when he couldn't manipulate him, he tried to manipulate the crowd. So there were people pushing people toward this, and there was a lot of resistance to it. A lot of resistance against it. And a lot of the people on camera were also pointing out that the folks that were engaging in violence didn't look like them. They weren't people running around in MAGA hats and t-shirts and blue jeans. They were dressed more like Antifa. And some of them were dressed more like Feds, which right down to khaki shorts and everything. So it's not just a simple fact of people saying, oh, there were Feds there and therefore XYZ. No, there was behavior that was very indicative of this being planned and directed. And like I said, either Ray Epps was a very disturbed man, or he was a Fed. Could be both. Could be both.
Mm-hmm. That's a good point. And yeah, I mean, I think we kind of covered the Ray Epps, or is it Ray Epps?
Yeah, we've talked
a
about
little
it
bit.
before.
We talked about it before. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so I did get a couple super chows, and I guess we're gonna move on. Yes, there is quiet music playing in the background. This is just to prevent dead air. I hope it's not too much of a distraction, but I have it very low, so it's just so that there's no dead air. All right, let us see. I got a couple super chows. Super chows. So one from Blind Leading the Blind. This was yesterday at 8 o'clock. I think for some reason it popped up on my OBS. I was streaming on the gaming channel with Lindsay. We were playing Resident Evil 6, and this big like super chow came up, and I'm like, what is this doing here? So Blind Leading the Blind, thank you. He wasn't sending it to the gaming channel. He was sending it to this one. Gives us $15 and says, women and feminists think a career will provide meaning to their lives. They claim that men find meaning through their careers and that women should have the same opportunity. However, they fail to realize that men actually do not find meaning in a career. The career is only a tool to obtain things that are meaningful. Somebody else just sent me a thing. Hold on. Companionship, a family, genuine relationships, etc. For example, the workplace used to be a place where men can find and meet potential girlfriends and wives. If nothing else, it was at least an opportunity to make friends and meet candidates that were 2 degrees away. However, feminist HR organizations have destroyed all human aspects of the workplace, effectively destroying this benefit that was attached to the career. The labor itself was not what made the career meaningful or otherwise fun. Feminists fail to realize this. Obviously, none of this applies to the soft autists among us. Yeah, well, I think that, like, you know, human beings are social. Like we're I think more gratified if we're like productive in some way, which is why work is important. Like they say, idle hands are the devil's playground. But the environment should also be like something where you can build friendships and cooperative relationships and things like that, and maybe even romantic relationships, right? If the opportunity presents itself. And yes, HR departments have especially made the latter impossible. Like basically, there's no way to navigate that kind of environment safely without your job being in danger or whatever. So they kind of took one of the few things that are like that exist as a potential for men when they go to the workplace. If they work in an office and there are women there and they're with them all the time, it's kind of like, how do guys meet girls when they're still going to school? Well, they meet them at school usually, right? So, and now that is basically a big problem, especially on college campuses. They're making that unworkable. And yeah, so yes, I agree with you 100%. And I think that HRs have to either I mean, it's not like they have no purpose, but they're being weaponized against men. And I think that was probably the point from the beginning. So there should definitely be a reorganization or a reimagining of HR departments in companies. Okay, so thank you for the super chow. That was from yesterday. Meredith G gives us $5 today. Let me give you a jumping Badger Chan. Gives us $5 and says HBR News 432, honey for the Badgers. Home everyone. I think you mean to say hope. Hope everyone is having a good holiday week. I'll catch the show later. Thank you, Meredith. And then I just got one from Michael Emmerich Winberg. Thank you, Michael, for $10. And he says, this is in honor of Miss Tieman's more recent endeavor. Once there was a girl so kind and demure, her healing skills still below par. When the risks of Tamtara they could not endure, her lover's head flew way too far. Tensions rose high, her spirits sank low, the group fell apart at the seams. Now only one man, with her where she'd go. He's always with me, her face beams. But he needed a body, a large one at that. For that one friend was sacrificed. Alala survived, boy he ran like a rat, but he ended up quite traumatized. The endeavor was thwarted with a lingering mourn for the skills that she never quite honed. If she'd cast some Cure 2 and not just spammed Cure 1, she might now be alive, wed and boned. I guess that's a Final Fantasy reference. Thank you. I mean, because Allison's been playing some Final Fantasy. What is the MMO 14, I think? and maybe he's aware of that. So thank you, Michael Eric Emmerich Winberg. And if you ever want to see Allison in Baldur's Gate 3, you can follow me at Honey Badger Arcade, because that is a party of badgers, and the last one was hilarious. Karen threw a goblin from like a rafter and killed him. It was hilarious. It doesn't say it was funny.
That sounds exactly like something Karen would do.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, she's a barbarian, so I had her. Yeah. There was a goblin giving us trouble, and he was up in these rafters, and I had Karen climb up there and throw him down from there. Yeah, and just
that's great.
Yeah, very great, very great. Okay.
I just want to point out one thing.
Yeah.
The reason why women mistake work as giving men's life meaning is because they don't understand that men can get meaning from more than one thing in their lives. And they don't understand how men's lives develop meaning, because they're taught growing up from the time they're little kids. Girls are taught that they're the most important thing in the room, and their lives have meaning by default, but that boys shouldn't have meaning to them unless they do things for them. So they just assume that men don't get meaning in their lives unless they do things for other people. And it doesn't occur to them that they find meaning in their relationships and their hobbies, and their career is an expression of the meaning of their life, not the place where they find it.
Yep. All right. Well, thank you for that. And let us know what you guys think about this in the comments. Appreciate the super chows and such. So we're going to talk about International Men's Day. So International Men's Day just passed. It was on Sunday, day before yesterday. Mike and Lauren came and visited us, and we had a little meetup on Saturday night. And shout out to Be Bad Sad, who showed up. And you know, we made the most of it. We hung out, had a good time, and all that. But of course, the internet, especially Google, well, their Google Doodle is up. I thought I would take a screenshot and show you guys. This is the International Men's Day Google page, which, you know, it's minimalist. It's a minimalist design. I guess I'll take it. And apparently, I'm almost out of storage. But I decided today that I would check something out. So, like, I went to ChatGPT. And I asked ChatGPT to tell me what International Men's Day is and what International Women's Day is. And I thought I would read that to you, and then I want to show you a couple of other things. So, okay, obviously, Google and like Facebook and everything else had nothing to say about International Men's Day. They didn't have any special wallpapers. They didn't have any special shout outs. Nothing. Okay. But this doesn't surprise anybody. It shouldn't, because this has been the case for as long as I've been doing this show. Every time International Men's Day comes around, I looked at just out of curiosity, and nobody's talking about it. Sometimes, though, there are even pieces written about it, and I'm going to get to a couple of examples in a moment. But let's first get the International Men's Day as defined by ChatGPT. International Men's Day is an annual event celebrated on November 19th to highlight and address issues that affect men and boys around the world. Sounds good so far. The day provides an opportunity to focus on men's health, improve gender relations, promote gender equality, and raise awareness of positive male role models. Okay. International Men's Day covers a range of themes, including men's mental health, the promotion of gender equality, there goes that term again, positive male role models, and discussions about challenges faced by men and boys. The day encourages conversations about topics such as toxic masculinity, the importance of positive male role models, and the impact of stereotypes on men's well-being. While International Men's Day has been celebrated in various forms since the 1990s, it's gained more recognition and visibility globally in the 21st century. The day is observed in many countries, and events may include discussions, seminars, workshops, and community outreach programs focusing on men's issues. It's important to note that International Men's Day does not seek to undermine or compete with International Women's Day, so stop doing that, but rather to complement it by addressing gender-related challenges from the perspective of men and boys. Both days contribute to the broader goal of achieving gender equality and fostering positive relationships between all genders, like all of them. Now, that's International Men's Day. Note the tone of it. This is an AI, supposedly, telling us what it is. Now, International Women's Day. I just asked it to tell me what both of these were. I didn't try to convince it of anything. I just wanted to know where it was starting from, okay? International Women's Day is a global day that celebrates the social, economic, cultural, and political achievements of women. It's also a day to raise awareness about the ongoing challenges and inequities or inequalities that women face worldwide. International Women's Day is observed annually on March 8th. Did you notice that? It says November 19th. Yeah, it does. Okay. Where was I? On March 8th. The day has its roots in the labor and women's rights movements of the early 20th century. The first National Women's Day was organized by the socialist movement in the United States on February 28th, 1909. The idea to make it an international event was proposed by Clara Zetkin, a German activist, at the International Women's Conference in 1910. The first International Women's Day was celebrated on March 19th, 1911 in several European countries. Over the years, International Women's Day has evolved into a global movement that highlights women's achievements, raises awareness about gender inequality, and advocates for women's rights. It is a day of solidarity and a call to action to address issues such as gender-based violence, unequal pay, a lack of access to education and healthcare, and underrepresentation in various fields. Each year, International Women's Day is marked by events, discussions, performances, and campaigns around the world. The day serves as an opportunity to celebrate the progress that has been made in advancing women's rights while recognizing the work that still needs to be done to achieve gender equality. The theme for International Women's Day often reflects the current global issues affecting women and girls. We'll do this in sections because there's a couple of other things I want to talk about. But note, obviously, you can see the stark difference between the way that ChatGPT defines Men's Day and Women's Day. And of course, we know that, AIs are essentially programmed by human beings. So this gives you an idea of the bias at the folks that do this. Now, I would be willing to bet that if you ran these questions through any artificial intelligence, it will give you very similar answers. So this is probably the reason, in my opinion, why there is no Google Doodle. There is no discussion about men's issues, that they're essentially invisible because women's issues always have to take precedent. So I want to get if Mike or Hannah have any thoughts on the Chat GPT definition, because I do think this is essentially what it's doing is it's grabbing together all of the discussion that it is able to get its hands on surrounding these 2 days, and it's giving its thoughts on it because it's essentially a search engine, right? So what do you guys think? Go ahead.
I noticed a word that kept cropping up in the Women's Day one, which is achievement or achieving.
Yes.
Women's achievement. If International Men's Day was about men's achievements, which I agree with it should be, it would be about almost all of the things.
You need International Men's Month.
It would be about a ChatGPT itself.
Yeah, and this is perhaps what they mean when they say every day is International Men's Day. Well, if it was about men's achievements, it would be, because almost every day we have, I mean, almost without exception, is about achievements that have been made by mostly men. Mm-hmm. But according to all these AIs, that's not what International Men's Day is about. It's about harmful stereotypes about men. Like, yes. I don't know, they achieve things.
Hannah,
like without even
Go ahead,
needing
Mike.
a day to pamper them into achieving it. Sorry, yeah.
No, it's okay. Go ahead.
The first thing that struck me about it, obviously, was the use of toxic masculinity.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, the most inappropriate thing to discuss on International Men's Day is toxic masculinity.
It is.
Because, well, first of all, the feminist concept of toxic masculinity, as opposed to the mythopoetic men's movement concept, the feminist concept is entirely made up by a person who is experiencing gender dysphoria, and at the time that they created this concept and stole the label from the myth of poetic men's movement for it, was likely to view masculinity itself, manhood itself, as a prison. Right? Rayon Connell wasn't a fan of manhood and masculinity, so much so as to have abandoned it. So anything that feminists say on this topic comes from that, not from caring about men's experiences, caring about men's welfare, loving and respecting men. None of that. It is all about treating masculinity itself as a prison in which men are trapped, and they would just, the whole world, they think, would be so much better off if it didn't exist. And so they want to eliminate it. And so they demonize both functional and dysfunctional expressions of masculinity. And when you look at the dysfunctional ones that they're talking about, that they generalize to all men, they are how masculinity develops when a boy has no adult male role models in his life that are not dysfunctional. When he's raised in a single mother household with a mom who has a revolving door of uncles coming through the house telling them all men are scum, including their father, who they never get to see. And the only boys in their lives that are successful are the ones that are selling drugs to their neighbors. That's where toxic masculinity, so-called toxic masculinity, develops in a man desert, right? Where it's almost entirely women and women's negative outlook on men influencing the man that a boy will develop into. So obviously, if you want to eliminate it, then you need to eliminate that environment. But they won't say that.
Yep.
So obviously it doesn't need to be talked about on International Men's Day, since the people bringing it up only want to use it as a gotcha against men and a bludgeon against men, and not a way to help men.
Yep. And I think that the takeaway from this, for me, just looking at the Chat GPT, it just kind of gives you an idea of what, because it's drawing all of its data from where? From every time anyone on the internet talks about men and women, and specifically talks about International Men's Day, International Women's Day, or any of the discussion in general about society. So it's pulling from all that data, but all of that data is entered by people. Like whether anytime you make a post, anytime you share a photo, make a video, whatever, it's drawing from all of that, every study, every academic thing, everything. So even though people like us are trying to draw attention to, issues that men face, and we're trying to push back on these narratives of toxic masculinity, etc., the data in favor of this case, for this case about International Men's Day, is so overwhelming that ChatGPT is basically putting that front and center because it sees it as the most common narrative, right? So this is why I think it's important. It's just to give you a sense of how much impact, at least on this AI, our counterpoints are having, which doesn't seem to be much. But that's okay, because I think that on an individual level, there might be more of an impact. So, but okay, so that's ChatGPT, and of course, not at all surprising to me. The thing is that it's important to note that I don't think that men are looking to get their assholes licked like women are when International Men's Day comes around. They don't want their day in the sun. They don't want their asses kissed. I don't think they really want anything. I think most men don't even acknowledge that it is real. That it exists as a day. They just kind of get on with it. And that's okay. So this is not me whining or anything, but I think that it does put into perspective, the way that we view, men's situation and women's situation differently. And that it is in fact, probably going to would be a good idea for us to, at the very least, like, recognize the contributions that men make. You know, I mean, nobody wants, again, don't want their asses kissed or anything like that, but we're doing the opposite of that. In fact, the day that I forgot to mention this, I don't have it up on the screen here, but instead of talking about International Men's Day, people were talking about, was it like Trans Visibility Day? Because it was like that week. So that became a bigger discussion, a bigger thing promoted, even though it's a much smaller percentage of the population than International Men's Day. And if the International Men's Day did have to be brought up, it was brought up in the context of trans visibility. So basically trans men. So trans men get more props than regular old men, which is, of course, the intent, in my opinion, of this whole like woke movement. It's basically all about erasing men's presence, men's contribution, men's perspective. At the end of the day, all the queer theory shit, it all exists to just like push men further and further out into the fringe and make them a less appealing, less interesting, and, you know, a less deserving group of people. So, but
anyway,
it's
interesting that you mentioned that about trans visibility, because the last few years, the narrative that feminists came up with was, you know, International Men's Day is on World Toilet Day. Ha, ha,
yeah,
ha.
that was. They also bring up Toilet Day too, and it's funny because Google could have.
We did a thing last year, I want to say, maybe the year before, where a bunch of us made video shorts that got put together in a longer video about International Men's Day, and mine was on the absolute benefit of indoor plumbing and how many men were involved in making that happen. Because can you imagine how many people are there in the world today? Like 8 billion.
Coming up on 8 billion.
Yeah, if we didn't have plumbing and sewer systems and stuff invented by men, built by men, maintained by men at the expense of their health and the expense of their safety, we would be in deep shit, literally. Yeah. And we would be like, the diseases that we see happening now that are scary are nothing compared to what we would be experiencing if we didn't have those things done by men. So I highlighted that because it's not a gotcha. It's highly appropriate that something as fundamental and as that we're so used to, that used to be a luxury, you know, that we're so used to, we take it for granted now, but that is so fundamentally important to our lives, was created by men, and it just gets ignored.
Yeah. And okay, so there's a couple of other things about this International Men's Day thing I wanted to point out. So there are a couple there is a couple articles I want to bring some attention to. This is from last year, and this is from a Canadian website called the Globe and Mail, and it is entitled, "Yes, International Men's Day is a real thing and it's worth supporting." That sounds good, doesn't it? Okay, so let me just sum up this article, all right? This article discusses the complexities surrounding the celebration of International Men's Day. So there's complexities, which falls on November 19th. The author, the executive director of the Canadian nonprofit Next Gen Men, addresses the potential pitfalls of supporting International Men's Day, such as the perception of it as an endorsement of patriarchy and its comparison to women's or trans days of recognition. The author acknowledges that men are already overrepresented in positions of power and influence. So this is on Men's Day, and it sounds like it's something that we should support. But the person who wrote this is like, but wait a minute, men are overrepresented, patriarchy, etc. And of course, it also emphasizes that despite the benefits men as a group receive from the patriarchy, individual men and boys can be deeply harmed, citing issues like societal expectations, mental health struggles, and suicide rates among teenage boys. International Men's Day is viewed as a chance to evaluate workplace cultures and explore themes such as seeking help, fear of failure, lack of support, and the need for role models. Now, when they say role models, they mean, of course, non-toxic masculine role models. So like appropriate role models that we will decide are the right kinds of role models. So that's one
Drag queens, basically.
Yeah, drag queens.
Yeah.
That's one article that sounds like that would be like as supportive of International Men's Day as it gets. Is
But
essentially
guys,
saying, yeah,
feminism has no power and no influence.
yeah,
we
no
all
power,
know that,
no
right?
influence,
And they don't
Exactly.
hate men, and that is why the media doesn't have to appeal to feminist man hatred at all in order to write about this topic.
Yep.
Not
All
at
right.
all.
And then we got this one from the Independent. Oh no, this is the wrong thing. Wait, oh yeah, here we go. Why International Men's Day is important for inclusive culture. So again, this is important. The framing of this. So we can't have a day just like on its face. We have to change the language. This by the way reminds me of when I talked to these kind of like MRA types that claim to be like both MRAs and woke. So they're trying to like make this puzzle piece fit in. And I'm telling them, look, man, as long as you're adopting this intersectionalist lens, men will always lose because they're at the bottom of that hierarchy, or, maybe in the eyes of an intersectionalist at the top, they're the most privileged. Therefore, they're the least deserving of sympathy and support. So you can't square that circle. So anyway, let me summarize this article from inclusiveemployees.co.uk. This article discusses the approaching International Men's Day, emphasizes its significance in empowering and standing with men across the UK. Okay, sounds good so far. The author is an inclusion and diversity consultant, suggests that while working in the realm of inclusion and diversity, one might feel disconnected from the concept of celebrating men, but International Men's Day presents an opportunity to have new conversations about men's experience and advance inclusion.
Really quick, I'm going to interrupt you.
Yeah.
There's a question in this. Why would, if inclusion means what the dictionary definition of inclusion means, and diversity means what the dictionary definition of diversity means, why would one feel disconnected from the concept of celebrating men under those conditions, right? Unless they are perverting the terms. That right there, anybody that tries to fit in with this, anybody that does try to square that circle, when you see shit like this, that should tell you that when they say diversity and inclusion, they're not actually saying diversity and inclusion.
No,
they
of course
are
not.
lying to you.
Yes.
We want to include you. We just think there are too many of you. That's all.
Yeah, and what this tries to do is say, well, we want to look out for men, but they have to be brown
They have to know
men.
their place.
They have to be a certain kind of man. We need trans men. We need brown men. We need gay men. We need non-binary men. I don't know if that's even a thing. Well, basically, like they have to be inclusive men, diverse men. But that means that you don't actually care about men, because you're creating brand new categories that you can divide men up into. So this is actually like counterintuitive. You're not doing anything. You're literally just dividing men along different lines now. When men generally, like, they work best when they're not thinking about that crap. So this is and these two are the best examples I could find of why, for one, don't ever expect the mainstream to actually like adopt or agree with a sort of general International Men's Day, but as it stands, like on its own, without any extra, let's modify it here or there because otherwise no one's going to care about it. Well, maybe we should. Maybe you should like abandon that whole intersectionalist lens and that whole toxic masculinity lens, because that's kind of the issue. And then on top of that, which I want to share as well, one other thing, GQ magazine made Kim Kardashian Man of the Year this year. So men can't even be the Man of the Year anymore. Now, maybe this is fair.
But they could be the Woman of the Year. They could be Miss Universe.
I was going to say, maybe it's like fair play because there are men winning championships, or biological men, trans women. I'm sorry, I don't mean to be a bigot. that are winning championships and getting like becoming Miss Universe or Miss America or whatever and all of that. So there is that. But again, this is an opportunity to, I mean, first of all, even if I was okay with them making Kim Kardashian or a woman man of the year, I don't see why it would be this woman. Like there's got to be a woman out there that's done more. Like this is literally the kind of woman that Pearl talks about when she says, why are the top earning men like super genius guys like Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos, and the top earning women are like Kim Kardashian and, you know, women who have essentially divorced Jeff Bezos. Gotta have this shit, you know. So I also thought that was worth pointing out, and this just goes to show the absolute state of our ability to simply, you know, acknowledge men. I mean, like as contributing in any way. So I don't know if you guys have any thoughts on either the two articles or the Kim Kardashian thing. I mean, frankly, I don't care. GQ is basically run by feminists anyway, so it's like,
yeah, that's
it's
exactly the kind of thing I would expect from
Yeah.
GQ.
Yeah.
Honestly, it just remember GQ is the magazine that sent a writer to the first ICMI in 2014 in Detroit with a pedophile to try to bait MRAs with this pedophile, and he did. He kind of shoved the guy in people's faces, like he escorted him around, and even took a bunch of the honey badgers out. I was not one who was included in that group because I was on the security team and I was working, but he took a bunch of the honey badgers to lunch and shoved this pedophile in their faces as well, and it was a real shit show. He didn't care that he might be shoving this guy in the faces of people who had been victimized, which he did do, by the way, multiple times, and then he wrote a hit piece in which he lied about people, attributed statements to people that were never made, and used images that were put through a filter that made the people that he had photographed look like zombies. And, you know, there's really not much of anything we can do about that guy, except, you know, in the future, as we moved on, we were more leery of the press. So every time we've treated media personalities with distrust, you can blame Jeff Charlotte, who I like to refer to as Jeff Charlotte. But yeah, I mean, he wasn't just dishonest with us. In my opinion, what he did with that guy constitutes sexual harassment. So it really doesn't surprise me that they would take the most famous, not Twitch thought, but Instagram thought, I guess,
Kim Kardashian,
and call her the man of the year after that kind of a stunt.
Well,
right?
not only that, but if you look at the image, I know you probably can't see it, but the image they use of Kim Kardashian for the cover of GQ is her in a suit eating Cheetos and licking her thumb. So this is like so this is what it suggests, because I think you guys got to know, like when they take these photos, none of this is an accident.
Nope.
Because they're essentially announcing her as Man of the Year, they're trying to put her in what they imagine or what they envision as like what a man is, and it's a person in a suit eating Cheetos. So that's what that means, okay? So yes, I mean, she should have had Cheeto dust on her fingers, but she probably didn't want to like get her fingers messed up for the photo shoot. So whatever. And the only thing I know that Kim Kardashian is famous for is the sex tape. That's it. I mean, like everything else kind of spilled out from that. So I guess this is a female achievement. But anyway, I did get another super chow I wanted to read really quick, from Xanathos, and he gives us $5 and says, Not many people / groups speaking for men, almost none without an angle or life philosophy. Please keep up the fight, even if you don't believe you can change the system. You make men not feel as lost in this modern hellscape and give a light to confusion. Well, thank you for that, Xanathos. And I won't. I mean, I think the truth always wins out eventually. And I think that change, the longest lasting change starts at the smallest scale. So if a few people change their lifestyles, in the long run, it will impact those that are willing to make the same changes. And hopefully that will snowball into something else. Plus, Argentina just got a based ass president now. So there is always hope. And I think it has to be at the bottom level if you want it to last. Feminists and commies, they love top down shit. And I know that it gets them fast results. It's like the dark side of the force, but it's not sustainable before it's destructive. But if you can work with people at the bottom level, I think that it takes longer, but it's a lot more enduring. This is why, by the way, I shared in the beginning of the show this little video of the crocodile hunter, and he, we know he passed away, but he was killed by a stingray or something, doing what he loved. And there was an interview clip where he was talking about what he is the pride he has for his children that he is leaving behind to carry on his work. And sure enough, his kids, even though he is no longer with us, are doing just that. And I think, I saw that and I said, this is what fathers do. This is what they give to their children. And I think that deserves acknowledgement and celebration. And that's something, by the way, Steve Irwin, that's somebody who is famous for the right reasons, not the reasons that Kim Kardashian is famous for. So yeah, I mean, I'm just look at that as a contrast. That's all I'm saying. So anyway, anybody else have any final thoughts on that before I move on to the final story? Okay, so I'm kind of excited for this, to be honest. So we're gonna get into the last story. That the main one was the International Men's Day thing. I think it was very important that we covered that because it did just happen. And I hope you guys had a good Sunday because that was International Men's Day. And yeah, just saying thank you for men for everything that you do because nobody else is gonna do that. So, all right. So final story. This is a victory for the culture war that I really have to talk about. So the Marvels came out, and it's been out for 2 weekends, and it has made records. Okay, it has broken records. The Marvels has achieved the dubious distinction of having the worst opening weekend in the history of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. But more than that, I'll get to that in a moment. The film, directed and written by Nia DaCosta, serves as the sequel to 2019's Captain Marvel. Despite initial predictions of low box office earnings due to perceived Marvel fatigue amongst fans, the film's actual performance fell below expectations. So even if you believe the lie that is people are tired of these movies, because they're not, and I can give you evidence for that, it's still underperformed. Okay, on its first day, the movie earned $21.5 million in the US, marking the second lowest opening day for an MCU film. Over the entire weekend, it garnered just $47 million in the US, making it the MCU's lowest grossing opening weekend against an estimated budget of $220 million. Some critics found the film to be a disjointed mess with a rushed final act, while others were pleasantly surprised. The disappointing box office numbers for the Marvels came amid ongoing discussions about the perceived saturation of the MCU in the market, which claims the franchise peaked with 2019's Avengers Endgame. But I want to. There's a couple things I want to point out. First of all, this is very important. The majority of people who went to see this film were still men. 65% of the people who actually gave money to a theater to watch it were still men, which means even though they tried to say this is for the ladies, women did not go see it. Only the die-hard culture junkie men that would go to anything that has their brand on it actually paid money to go see it. And even then, it was a massive flop. And also, the drop in sales was so harsh. It was the biggest drop of any superhero movie ever. So not just this one. And I got some funny shit to compare it to. So here's what it grossed: $64 million, almost $65 million, domestic. Internationally, about 96 million. Worldwide, 161 million. The budget was $220 million. So I thought I would look at, here's the data on it. But I thought, okay, so people are saying this is like the biggest fail since like, ever. And then I thought, well, what's another movie that had was a massive flop? And there was this film that came out, this little movie that came out in 2022 called Morbius. Okay? And so I got to tell you about this because I think this is hilarious. Morbius was a massive flop. The first weekend, it did terribly, okay? And the opening was like 39 million. They spent like, a lot more than that. I think it was close to $200 million on this one too, maybe 100 and something million dollars. And after the first weekend, there was this meme, I think it was in one of the trailers or something, where somebody said, "It's Morbin time." And the "It's Morbin time" meme was all over the internet. And because of it, people were like, oh, I want to watch the movie again now. I want to go see it now, right? And so what the studio did, I think it was Columbia Pictures, they said, oh, we're going to put the movie out for another weekend. Maybe this meme will give us a boost in sales, okay? And with the boost, it still only made $74 million domestically and $93 million international, which is still more than the Marvels did. So the Marvel's literally worse than Morbius. And I also compared it to Catwoman, which came out in 2004, another gigantic bomb. Catwoman only made a little bit less than that. It made, at the end of the day, $82 million worldwide. And I was talking to Lindsay about it because we were having a laugh about this. Because this movie was like, it was supposed to be like the girl power movie to end all girl power movies. And first of all, mostly men went to see it. So that's funny. And also, it was a massive bomb because basically the people who made this film were saying, this isn't for you, so you shouldn't come see it because that makes you a bigot, racist, whatever, etc. And so they've been pushing their audience away. And they flopped. And then I looked at, I don't have it up here, but I even looked at, I was trying to think, like, what's like one of the biggest flops that I can remember? And in 1984, there was a film called Supergirl. Do you guys remember Supergirl? It was terrible. Oh my gosh,
yes.
It was terrible, okay? Supergirl, when you adjust for inflation, made about the same amount of money as this. And it didn't release internationally. It was only domestic. Like, it didn't go to other countries. Because that back then, I guess, in the 80s, movies didn't really leave the U.S. like when they were in theatrical releases. I think, I don't know, because it didn't have a international gross on Box Office Mojo. It was just a domestic gross. But yes, I mean, so yes, literally, guys, go watch Supergirl if you gotta. It's not good. It's not good, but it is hilarious. So just saying, those are my thoughts. I just wanted to share this. I think it's I think what it means is that finally people are starting to like actually vote with their dollars. Unfortunately, the problem is still men who will spend money on anything. But maybe they were just trying to make a statement. I don't know. But women didn't go see this. And I give you another reason why I know this is true. It's not, and it's got nothing to do with like whatever they're trying to blame it on. First of all, the superhero fatigue thing is not real, because if you look at Netflix, there are shows like, well, not just Netflix, but streaming services. There's Invincible season 2, The Boys, and Generation V, just 3 very popular shows right now. I think they're at the tops of a lot of lists. So people are still watching that stuff. Then you have, well, what about the women audience? Well, the Barbie movie made $1 billion, over $1 billion. So there's clearly an audience for that. And it is mostly women that watched it. And the Hunger Games. There was a Hunger Games prequel that came out the same weekend, and that's like #1 in the box office right now. So women are spending their money and going to the theater. They're just not going to see this. It's almost like these movies are not for women. Like, or at least they're not the primary customer. So anyway, I thought big win for the culture war. Basically, Disney's lost a shit ton of money. I don't know if anybody is paying attention. Doesn't matter to me. But I think it's great. So anyway, anybody have thoughts on that?
Yeah, I am not trying to burst anybody's bubble on this, but this movie wasn't made with profit in mind. They knew when they made this they were going to lose that money, and they budgeted for it, and they may even be getting support, from elsewhere to do this. Their budget for this probably wasn't even remotely related to revenue. It's not about success with stuff like this. It's about imposing a narrative, right? It's about imposing wokeness and establishing who decides what is or is not part of the culture. It's about looking out at the people and saying, this is not your Overton window. It's our Overton window. You see the view through it. We control where it is. And they really don't care if you buy it. They don't care if you like it. They don't care if you choose to go see it or not, because you can't get away from it. It's discussed everywhere. There's posters everywhere. There's people talking about it on every social media outlet that you can enjoy. You will see posts about it, and there's ads all over the place. And they're still going to have the whole girl power message and blah blah blah. Right? It will not matter. And that nobody liked it. It is only going to be a vehicle for either forcing, coercing, or shaming you into accepting that narrative. And they won't admit publicly that it's not profitable because it sucks. They'll use the fact that it's not profitable to demonize groups of people that disagree with them. Because the goal isn't profit, and it's not entertainment. It's establishing that you are not allowed to think for yourself. They do the thinking for you, or else. And it's establishing that woke ideologues get to use every form of media to impose their ideology on you, using pop culture as their vehicle without opposition. And if you oppose them, you're the bad guy, the villain. And they've actually used it pretty effectively here to a degree, in that they were able to identify, based on how people talked and wrote about this, all of the media outlets that support that initiative, and all of the media outlets that they need to put pressure on because they're not on board yet. And they'll continue to do that until they get to the point where you see almost no media outlets that oppose that narrative. That if a movie comes out and it sucks, and the only thing about it is that it's intended to promote a narrative, there's no storyline, the characters aren't great, and everything about the movie sucks, and you get people writing negative things about it, they'll disappear. Those outlets will disappear. They'll get, no ads. They'll get demonetized, basically, debanked, whatever.
Yeah.
And that'll be the next step. They've already been practicing debanking on individual people. They've already been demonetizing small media like us. That'll be the next step. You can't talk about this without promoting the narrative, or we'll make sure you can't make any money.
Mm-hmm.
So it's I hate, like I said, I hate to be the negative Nancy in the group, but as much of a victory as the failure of the movie is, it was planned for.
Well,
that wasn't their target at all.
And I hate to be the positive Peter, or whatever, in all of this, but you have to ask yourself, not only does where does this money come from, but where does it go? Where it came from is the executives, is the producers, is the people with more money than sense, but and they drain all their money into this project and they don't get it back. But where does that money go? Well, it goes on the budget, and that budget goes to the crew, the people who film it, the animators, the fucking thousands of animators who do all the CG stuff, the honest, hard-working people who do exist in the Hollywood industrial complex, or whatever you call it. And And so underneath all of this is the good news that when Disney folds, if Disney ever does fold, then the people who will be out of a job will be the Kathleen Kennedys of the world, the higher up, who did actually ruin that particular massive wing of the industry. But the good old fashioned hard-working people who pointed the cameras, who sat in front of a computer, animating shit for 20 hours a day for God knows how many months, they're at least going to get paid. And when Disney goes under, those people are going to find jobs elsewhere. there's your white pill. Like, I know it sounds like a bit of a socialist message, but ironically, the people in charge of Disney pushing these socialist messages aren't really interested in the actual workers who do all of the legwork. But when the dust is settled, ironically, it is those working people who will rise above the useless managerial element of the whole thing, and I hope they appreciate what we've done for them when the aforementioned dust is settled.
Well, I was just gonna say that I know that the people who were behind this, they have deep pockets, and they are more interested in the message than the sales. I don't think it's sustainable, but what I'm saying is, on the plus side, people aren't giving as much money to them, so it seems at least that there is a shift in terms of who's taking the messaging in. But yeah, I think there's a lot of people who have, like Mike said, more money than sense, and they're just going to pour their resources into something because they're looking to shift to move the needle, as it were, on our culture. But I think that the fact that people have stopped, giving this their attention it is a good sign. And also, I knew this already because the creator of Ms. Marvel, who's a character that they have rebooted like 5 times because no one wants to buy the books, her name is Sana Amanat, and she has said in interviews that she's not interested in profits, she's interested in impact, which is basically saying, I want to communicate my feminist intersectional messaging, and I don't care if nobody buys the book. Now, so there's obviously people that are invested in the propaganda more than the profits, but I don't know if that's sustainable. Like, if nobody's listening, then maybe it will have to either change put on a different skin, or do something else. And I also know, because I've been looking at what's going on with the board over at Disney, but I don't think it's limited to Disney, that there has been a lot of arguing and fighting amongst board members that are like, I don't want to give money to something that isn't making money. And plus, it's also worth noting that the Marvels, by the way, they had to cut out a scene where there was a suggestion at a lesbian relationship between Captain Marvel and one of the other characters, I think Valkyrie or something. And they left it in only in like the Western countries, but they took it out for the Middle East and China and stuff. So, and they still didn't sell. Like, people still didn't go watch it. They just didn't want to. So I don't know. I think that I'm not sure that this is a sustainable model, is what I'm saying. But it won't stop them from trying.
Here's the thing. You know how the meme sort of goes around that a certain set of companies owns everything.
Yeah.
By being invested in everything. The top 2 stockholders in Disney are the Vanguard Group and BlackRock.
Yeah.
So we're looking at investors that are known to use their funds to promote these ideas, and they have a shitload of money, and a lot of it is taken from people's mutual funds for their retirement accounts and stuff. They're investing. Anybody out there that your company has your retirement tied up in a mutual fund, they're using your money for this, and it again traces back to some of the biggest world banks and certain group of wealthy men, and the whole shebang of conspiracy theory that is turning out to be true. in regard to a very small group of people with a lot of money controlling pretty much every area of media. As
Yeah.
it's why I'm tentatively celebrating that, at least people are rejecting still the message
Yeah.
that they're attempting to impose. The fact that they're failing, the fact that the movies are not making a profit shows that they're not getting people to adopt this shit, right?
Yeah.
But I don't expect them to go under. It'll be a pleasant surprise to be wrong about that, but I don't expect them to go under. I expect them to continue getting fed life support by these investors that want this stuff promoted until such time as it becomes either illegal or so expensive that they can't do it anymore. And I don't expect it to become illegal. It
Yeah.
shouldn't really become illegal, but the debanking and all of that should. But this we should just be able to continue rejecting.
Absolutely.
This
And
shit.
I think people will. Well, we'll see. I hope so. But we should wrap it
And
up there. Oh, go ahead, Mike. Okay.
Do you know, I even feel bad for Cheese Thief. What's the name? Brie Larson. like what I was saying earlier about how at least it's the crew that's getting all the money. Well, Cheese Thief is maybe getting $1 million, but even she's not going to come out of it. The other 10 years from now, she's going to be in the same situation that so many child stars have been in.
She's gonna be playing with knives in front of a camera.
Yeah, on 6 different drugs at the same time, and so it's tempting though it is to sit here and say, "Ha, Brie Larson, you're a twat," and so like her $1 million is going to run out very soon. You really need to focus your ire on the bastards you can't see behind the scenes that are making this happen.
Yes.
Who are
Go ahead. I was just going to say, I honestly don't have any ill will towards Brie Larson. I know that she said some really boneheaded things about men and all that, but I think she's just, she's been programmed by these things. So I don't really hold it against her. I've from the beginning, I'm like, yeah, she's probably hard to be around. But you know what? There's a lot of people in show business that I like their work. I mean, I'm not saying I like Brie Larson's work. I'm kind of indifferent. She was all right in Scott Pilgrim versus the World, but there are lots of people whose work I really like, but I really don't want to know them because I'm sure that they're absolute turds, especially musicians, but not just them, so like, I'm okay with, I don't have a problem with Brie Larson. I hope she finds good work. I said this about Daisy Ridley too. I hope that, she goes on to do something else with herself, whatever. Just, it's just like Mike said, I blame the people behind everything. I blame the people who write it. I blame the people who say this is what we have to do. I blame the executives, directors, etc. The people who've been shitting on their fans, I blame a little bit, yes, but at the end of the day, it's like they're just parts of the machine.
Here's a reminder of some things over the years. There's, everybody knows there's been a lot of abuse of children in the film industry, both television and movies, right?
Yeah.
And over the years, there's been a lot of legal reform as a result of that. And part of that legal reform created a system wherein these kids are educated on their job sites. So a lot of kids that were TV stars or movie stars as children got their education not sitting in a classroom in a school, but in a trailer on a movie set or a television set.
Yeah, sure.
And so the people that were educating them were even worse than the teachers in the public school system who were members of the teachers' unions, where you had at least a shot at getting somebody who was not, a Marxist for years and years and years. These people were Hollywood type people. These people were Marxists. These people were full on, feminist, and quite likely she has been spoon-fed this shit all of her life. Not just programmed, but cult indoctrinated.
Sure. Yeah.
And so what you're saying makes perfect sense in that she didn't have a chance to think
Right.
differently.
Right. And also,
we've talked about gynocentrism not necessarily being instinctive.
Mhm.
Misandry is completely unnatural.
Yeah.
It is not natural to just hate people like that. It's a result of basically sick thinking. It's a result of mental health conditions that just end up more and more widespread because people share thought processes and ideas with each other, and some people are really good at framing things in very dishonest ways and persuading people to believe them, and then you end up with widespread misandry, and you end up
Yeah.
with people saying shit like the shit that she said. And maybe when she gets older, at some point she'll have enough exposure to something that will change her mind that she'll be embarrassed about it.
Yep.
And we'll just have to find out. But yeah, I almost every girl that you hear at that age saying that shit has been programmed like that.
Yeah.
But in particular, Hollywood girls.
Yes. Especially the young ones.
Mhm.
All right. So anyway, let us know what you guys think about that in the comment section. I look forward to your thoughts. So we're going to be heading into the patron show, and we're going to be talking about Argentina's new, and according to the leading report, Trump-like President Javier Milei, who apparently is keeping his promise and has announced that the Argentinian Ministry of Women, Gender, and Equality will close in 21 days.
Afuera!
Afuera! Trump, take notes. It's an interesting contrast too, because I saw this interview that Tucker Carlson did with this guy that was running for office in Spain. Spain is so boned, guys. They are so boned. He's really worried about the future of that country. I don't know if he's going to get in, but God, I hope so. It seems like the Latinos are rising up. So hopefully Spain will do well. And we already got, Bolsonaro down there in Brazil. I don't know if he counts as Latino, but, and the guy in Salvador that basically arrested MS-13, just threw them all in jail. Let's just see more of this, please. More of this, please. So Javier Milei, we're going to be talking about an article in the patron show. I did get another super chow, so thank you so much. From Sick Fox, who gives us $10 and says, relating to Javier to Milei being elected and promising to axe the Ministry of Women, which I just read that, genders and diversity, I've argued for a long time that libertarianism, when properly understood and implemented, is poison to feminist institutions. Viva la libertad, carajo. Yes. Well, I've said that too from the beginning. Actually, that was my thought. We used to. I don't know if you guys remember. This is going to be a deep cut from the early days of HBR. But there was a guy that used to be on YouTube that we've had on the show named That Guy T. You guys remember That Guy T? And his whole thing was libertarianism. And when we had him on as a guest, he said explicitly that he liked us MRAs because he said men's rights activists are not trying to use the system for them. They're trying to free men from the system, which is what I think you can. I mean, men don't want to do that. They don't want to do what feminists do for women, which is essentially get more state power and then do nothing for women. MRAs just want the system to liberate men or not liberate. I hate to say that. To just be less involved in the lives of men. And because that's where the no fault divorce and all this other stuff, it's all state power stuff. So
feminism would have no power if there was no government. I will say that. Without government, feminism couldn't accomplish anything.
That's right. That's right. So yeah, That Guy T was right. Thank you so much for the super chow, Sick Fox. And now we're gonna head into the patron show. So if you guys like this video, please hit like, subscribe if you're not already subscribed, hit the bell for notifications, leave us a comment, let us know what you guys think about what we discussed on the show today. if we don't see you before Thursday, have a great Thanksgiving, assuming you're American. But even if you're not, enjoy that day. Maybe have some turkey. Maybe pretend to be American for a day. You know, but pretend to be a colonizer, a genocider, or whatever it is they're calling people who like to celebrate Thanksgiving. And spend some time with your family and such. So, and leave us a comment, like I said, like, share, subscribe. And we will talk to you guys in the next video. Have a good one, everybody.
Men's rights activists are machines, dude. Okay? They are literal machines. They are talking point machines. They are impossible to fucking deal with, especially if you have like a couple dudes who have good memory on top of that too. Holy shit, you're fucked.